Hi guys, what do you know, what do you say? We got ourselves a Don Bluth tier list. We're gonna be serving it up fajita style. He's basically like the Trippie Redd of animation. He's just super talented. He's always been there. You know, he's always in the thick of it. Dude's an absolute legend. You already know this. The Teflon Don has had his hand in a bunch of different animated masterpieces. The Fox and the Hound, Robin Hood, Winnie the Pooh Bear. But in this tier list, we're only focusing on feature-length films where he is credited as the director. Spoiler warning for all of these movies in the tier list.
Spoilers in the house.
Also, for what it's worth, I did not grow up with these movies. I saw all of these last weekend, and I just want to talk about them because I think it'd be really fun. Let's start with the Teflon Don's first animated feature-length film that he directed, at least according to Wikipedia, which, you know, Wikipedia is a sacred place of truth. The Secret of NIMH. Yeah, the Teflon Don starting off really strong with The Secret of NIMH. Follows a little mouse mother who wants to protect her son who has pneumonia. Well, in the anime, they have to move away from their house because a giant tractor or whatever is gonna plow through all the land that they live in. And normally what they would do at this point is just move all their family members out to another location. But since one of the children has pneumonia, the excuse given in the anime is that he can't move because if the lad with pneumonia would set foot outside of their house, he would essentially be game-ended because it's too cold for him, right?
What about Timmy? Chill in the air could kill him.
Now, I have no idea, I'm not a physician, don't know how pneumonia works. I felt that it was pretty extreme that their solution was that they needed to move their entire freaking house to save the lad. But then why don't they just put him in like a little box or like a little coffin and then like kind of carry him outside into a new location? You know, I don't see why they have to move their entire cinder block house. Nitpicky thing. I'm not trying to be like CinemaSins over here like, oh, why does this work? Why does that work? That didn't detract my enjoyment of the film. I really love the crow. Whatever his name was, I totally forgot, is this really funny crow. Every scene he's in, he's like tangled in something, whether it be like string or wires or a freaking blanket. But I also get like secondhand frustration watching all of his scenes because I'm like, bro, just untie yourself, just get out of that. But ultimately, this is just an anime about a mother trying to take care of her son, which I think is very touching, it's really sweet. There's a certain scene that's pretty gruesome in this cartoon that I did not expect. Basically the part where the mother mouse goes to see the great owl, a giant spider pops out from behind her, which you think she's gonna like run away from it or whatever, but the giant owl pops up and squishes the giant spider, and it's all on screen. It's not off screen. They animated the spider actually getting squished, which was pretty gruesome in my opinion. Like imagine that wasn't a spider, imagine that was any other animal. Like that'd be pretty messed up. Also, I really love the idea of the rats having super intelligence because the Secret of NIMH, NIMH stands for like the National Institute of Mental Health, something along those lines. It's basically some kind of secret laboratory where they take lab rats and do experiments on them. And the result of those experiments is that some rats were able to escape the facility with human-like intelligence. I was surprised they like went to the trouble of explaining that. At least for me, as I was watching the anime, you know, you see Miss Brigsby go into like the secret city of the rats that's all advanced and stuff. But it never occurred to me that those rats were like super intelligent. I was just willing to accept the fact that the rats had a cool city. You know, there's nothing in this anime that suggests that would be out of the norm for this universe. I think the ending is pretty anticlimactic, if I'm being 100% honest. It's just like, hey, there's this magical amulet and now there's magic in this universe. You know, great. And at the end, she uses the magic to somehow lift her cinder block house. But it did at least caught me off guard because what I was expecting to happen was that the crow was gonna come back because at a certain point, the mother mouse tells the crow, hey, go gather as much string as you can. And the crow's like, all right, bet. And he goes to get a bunch of string. And then we don't see him until the very end of the movie when all of the action is done and they move their house. And it's like the crow was just gone. I feel like he really helped during that climactic moment when the house was sinking into the swamp. But no, he was out just gathering string and not part of the climax of the movie at all. I thought that was pretty lame because again, it's just the amulet, like this magic amulet. But they didn't go through any trouble to explain where the amulet came from. I really enjoyed this movie. It kept me engaged the whole time and I would love to see it again. I really would. I think this movie ought to get A tier. I'll put it A tier. I think it's a really good one. Now, unlike my Pixar tier list that I did just kind of off the cuff, I wasn't really paying attention to it. But in this one, films closer to the left will be better than films that are to the right. That's how it usually is for a tier list. Next meme, An American Tale. Another anime about mice. Small family in Russia, after their village is pillaged by a bunch of cats, they decide to move all the way to America in search of a better life. Because of course, as the song suggests, there are no cats in America, boy. The young little mouse lad, Fievel, gets separated from his family on his way to America on the boat. He gets washed away onto the shore of the Statue of Liberty, and from there he is tasked with finding his family, who also presumably is in New York. Very touching anime, very fun. It is a musical. A lot of the Don Bluth animes going forward are going to be musicals, not all of them. And just to be clear, I'm not the biggest fan of musicals. Like, a big part of the reasons why I love the Pixar movies so much because they go out of the way not to be musicals. But I don't mind if an animated movie has songs in it. All I ask is that the songs be good, which is very subjective. But I also ask that the songs not be pointless, you know? Have the song tell us something about the characters, or at least move the plot along, right? I think the one they do have is really fun, that there are no cats in America. I like that, I like that. And it kind of shows off kind of mindset, you know, like this place gotta be so much better. You know, the streets gotta be lined with cheese. And in actuality, when you get there, it turns out not to be the case. Now, one scene that really stuck out to me, like at one point, Fievel gets thrown essentially into a sweatshop and he's forced to make clothes with a bunch of other orphans. And they're all there at night after working all day and they're like, oh man, I wanna escape. And then all the orphans are like, there's no way you're escaping, buddy. We've been here for years. There's no way you're gonna escape. And so of course, in my mind, I thought, okay, well, we're gonna go into like a prison break type of thing. That's what the movie's gonna be about, or at least a big chunk of the movie. But then like 5 seconds later, he just ties up a bunch of bed sheets and they all just escape out the window. And it's pretty easy to do. And there's no like tension, there's no nothing. It's just the escape and that's it. It's pretty easy. And the whole time I'm like, really? Nobody thought to do this? Like, is Fievel just like a big brain mouse? Why was it so easy? There's another part. All the townspeople kind of get together and they want to decide what they want to do to deal with all the cats that are messing with them all the time. And of course, Fievel, once again, the big brain lad, just kind of whispers into the ear of the person speaking this very intricate plan, presumably, to make this giant mechanical beast to scare off all of the cats, which by the way, the mechanical beast thing looks insane. That design looks so hard. It could be a freaking death metal album cover. It looks really cool. I didn't expect a design to go quite that hard in An American Tale, but that's where we're at, lads. But anyway, it's just kind of like, why is this kid so smart? Like, it's never established that this kid has above average intelligence for a mouse. Like, is Fievel one of the freaking mice from the NIMH laboratory that got the injection to get super smart? Is that like the Don Bluth theory? Is there like a theory that all these movies are connected together? I'm sure someone else has done that. Now, probably my favorite scene in the whole movie, after the whole climax, after they get rid of all the cats, Fievel is still not able to find his family. Now, I didn't for a second think that he wasn't gonna have a happy ending. You know, you've seen a lot of movies, you know how these things play out. Of course, he's gonna eventually find his family. But there's a pretty impactful moment where he's kind of sitting with a bunch of other orphans and he's like, man, I really wanna find my family, but I can't find them. What the heck is going on? And then the other orphans there who are so jaded with life, and of course they haven't found their families ever, and they've been searching for a long time. They're like, yo, I've already given up trying to find my family. You seriously still trying to find yours? And then he says like, oh, if your family actually cared about you, then they'd be the ones searching for you, not the other way around. And that was pretty hardcore to see in a movie like this. But then at one point, there's like, the camera pans out, and then you see just a bunch of different other mice who are there and presumably can't find their families as well. And that just felt very impactful. It felt like a very show don't tell moment. Yeah, of course, Fievel's gonna find his family. There's like a million other ones that don't. That was just a scene that was so poignant with its message, very sobering to see. And that scene alone just kind of bumped this movie up a tier for me. I think I gotta give it a B tier. The Land Before Time. It felt pretty short, but we get to the end credits of this movie about an hour into it. Like it's about an hour running time. But overall, I thought it was worth the hype. I thought it was really cool. It was really touching. I think Littlefoot, who kind of sounds like a SoundCloud rapper, you know, Lil Xan, Lil Nas. I think all of the lads in this movie are well acted, they're well voice acted. I think a lot of times in kids media, there's a tendency to kind of age up a kid in terms of their behavior and how they act. And this one specifically, the kids really feel like kids. You know, Littlefoot, when he gets angry, he starts to tear up because he's just so young, he can't really control his emotions and what he feels. And I think that shows really well in the acting of Littlefoot and Sarah, how they're always kind of going at each other. They're always arguing. It's really cute. And it feels real. It feels genuine. I think the death of Littlefoot's mother was pretty obvious. You know, like, I think if you watch this as a kid, it would be a little bit more impactful. But watching this as like an adult with a lot of other movies under your belt, you can kind of see it from a mile away that, okay, yeah, this kid's mom is gonna die. Big standout moment for me was the scene with the tree star. Littlefoot's mom basically reaches up and grabs a leaf for Littlefoot and gives it to him and says, yo, this is a tree star, and where we're going, the Great Valley, has 1 million of these that you can eat. It's very cool, but this one's for you. And he kind of holds on to it as long as he can, and it's just so adorable. And the animation of that leaf falling down, beautifully animated, and it says so much with just the visual. We see this beautiful, flowing, hydrated leaf fall down gracefully while surrounded with like a valley that's like barren wasteland. You know, there's no green, there's not a lot of green where they are right now. That's kind of the whole point of the anime, is that where they are at right now, there's not enough food, but they have to go and travel all the way to the Great Valley so they can survive and keep up the species. Like the final battle with the T-Rex or whatever, you know, they get him and all, and then immediately find the Great Valley. And I'm like, whoa, that's it? And then I look at the time like, oh yeah, it's already an hour and it's already done. And it's like, dang. I guess that's like the worst thing I can say about this anime, is that I wish it was longer. I wish there was more of it. I gotta give The Land Before Time an A tier, a pretty high A tier. All dogs go to heaven, boys. Anybody who's known me for 5 minutes knows that I have an older brother who I'm very close with, and any story that has 2 male characters that are very close and brother-like, I'm a huge sucker for. All Dogs Go to Heaven is that type of movie, and I really liked that. I thought it was really cute. I know I haven't been saying this all the time, but I want to remind you guys, I think the animation is great. All these Don Bluth films have great animation going for them. The dogs are super expressive. They're super fun. I love Itchy. He's always itching himself. He's so cute. He's a little wiener dog. I love it so much. I think Charlie and Itchy have such a great dynamic. It's like a big brother, older brother type dynamic. I'm not saying they are brothers, but they have that kind of dynamic. It's so cute. The film starts with them busting him out of jail, and Charlie is just an awesome, charismatic, wisecracking dog that's just trying to make a buck. Not gonna lie, I almost wish that the movie was just about them. The villain is really cool in this anime. Love the dynamic with Carface, the villain, and his like evil sidekick. How Carface would always say something and his villain buddy henchman would chime in and he'd be like, shut up. That made me laugh way too many times. The movie starts off with Carface actually murdering Charlie, which is so ballsy for an animated movie. I love to see it. And I get that that's the premise. It's not like a surprise or anything. I think everyone kind of goes into it knowing that Charlie's gonna die, because obviously the film is about him coming back from the afterlife, but it is pretty sobering to see. There are definitely a handful of songs in this movie. I really like the first song with Itchy and Charlie kind of introducing themselves as characters. Some of the songs not so good. There's some random song about Charlie teaching kids how to share and how they should, you know, sharing is caring type beat. I'm like, what the heck is this? That really took me out of the movie. I was like, wow, really? Really? Charlie? This guy who's like this wisecracking, scamming guy that steals wallets or whatever. This guy is gonna teach kids how important it is to share. I mean, I guess to Charlie's credit, at the beginning, he does kind of win a giant jackpot and kind of shares it with everybody else in the casino. There's another song with like the alligator. For some reason, that character warrants a song, and the song sounds goofy. Like there are parts where he's singing underwater and like his voice sounds really weird. I get that's like the point, but it sounded awful to me. I didn't really vibe with his jams here, Teflon Don. The ending, while it's really good and I did enjoy it, especially love the performances, I gotta be honest, it felt a little bit jarring that like we spend the entire movie with Charlie's like watch telling him, you can never come back, you can never come back. Once you leave heaven, you can never come back. We spend the entire movie saying that. And then, don't get me wrong, I didn't for a second think that the movie was gonna end with Charlie rotting in doggy hell, but it felt a little bit unsatisfying at the end. It was just like, okay, fine, you can come back, and then that was it. Like, that whole plot point of him not being able to come back was just kind of like snapped away. I think maybe if they could have like alluded to the fact that there is a possibility he could have come back, I think that would have made it more impactful. But I can forgive all that because the scene with Charlie saying goodbye to the orphan girl is very touching, very heart-wrenching. I gotta give it the A tier.
Well, they said time flies. Well, that was just a lie.
I felt betrayed. I felt deceived. I felt misled. Rock-a-Doodle, this one is not worth your time. Look at this cover art for this anime, lads. What do you see? What do you see? You see a giant rooster here who you presume to be the main character of the anime. But no, that's not the main character of the anime. It's this little twerp right here. It's that little twerp's story, not Chanticleer's. And I think it would have been 10,000 times better had it been all about Chanticleer. The anime starts out with Chanticleer, who's like this really awesome rooster in a farm, and he sings really loudly, is that he believes that his singing is what causes the sun to rise every morning. But of course, one day he doesn't sing and the sun just rises up regardless of his singing, and that causes him to leave the farm in shame. Now this is interesting. And Chanticleer, I think he's actually voiced by a real country singer. His songs and his performances sounded great. Had this anime not had that, I'd be much harsher on it. But as we find out, this story is actually taking place inside a child's book in the real world. That's right, there are a few live action sections in this cartoon. And it's super pointless and goofy, not well acted at all. In my opinion, the live action sections of this anime add absolutely nothing to the story. It really doesn't. Like, I didn't even like fully understand it. Basically, because Chanticleer leaves the farm has this like everlasting rain that's happening, and it's flooding the farm that the animals live in. And I guess at the same time, in the live action universe, the child's farm where he lives in is also experiencing heavy rains, which I guess also threatens flooding the farm. But in any case, this causes the kid to be transported into the cartoon universe where he transforms into a cat, and then, you know, shenanigans ensue, right? He kind of joins the farm animals on a mission to get Chanticleer back so they can keep singing on the farm and make the sun rise again to stop the rain. This all sounds fun in theory, but the kid is so annoying. His voice acting, there are a lot of annoying characters in this cast, actually. There's like a little mouse that has like an annoying lisp, and she's always arguing with this other guy. I think he's like a magpie type bird, and he has this annoying like Mandark nerd voice. I think he's actually voiced by the same lad who does the Mandark voice from Dexter's Lab.
Ah, this is pathetic. I risk my life and what do I get?
And listen, I don't mind characters having annoying voices so much, but when every character in this anime has an annoying voice, that's when it gets kind of grating, especially for a feature-length film. And the main guy that I care about, Chanticleer, is not a big part of the story. In fact, at one point, he actually becomes knocked out, and then for the rest of the climax, he's just not a part of the climax at all. This movie felt like I was going to a concert to see Elvis, but instead I was greeted with little Zan, who also threw his microphone at me and kicked me in the face. I will say this, there are these buff frogs that are like hopping around, and they're like there to protect Chanticleer, because Chanticleer is like this big music star now, bodyguard type things. They're called bouncers. Get it? Bouncers. I love that. I love that kind of shenanigans in anime. It's a pretty typical like, oh man, being famous isn't all it's cracked up to be. Nothing surprising, nothing really engaging. I didn't like this one as much as I hoped I would have. Near the end where like the boy gets superimposed into the animation, it looks just as goofy as you think it would. I'm not gonna harp on that too much. I know this is old. I'm sure the effects looked great for the time, but it just looks kind of goofy. Oh, I hate to do it, boys. I really hate to do it. But Rock-a-Doodle, D tier. I'm gonna give it a D tier. Thumbelina. I'm probably not the target demographic for this. I saw the cover art. I was like, you know what? Genuinely, what are we doing here? But it's a certified classic from the Teflon Don himself, so you know we gotta give it a spin. Very solid princess movie. Honestly, very solid. I think it's a unique idea, this little tiny princess that gets launched all the way from her home and she's lost. Of course, she's tiny, so it's a big, big world. She has what feels like a gargantuan task to find her fairy prince and return home without getting got by a million other things along the way. There are songs in this movie. I think the songs are great. None of them feel pointless, which is more than I can say for all dogs, if I'm being honest. Well animated. I love Thumbelina as a character. She's really sweet, really cool. I think the fairy prince himself is really cool as well. I really like him. As far as like, you know, plot inconsistencies go, nothing too bad here. There's one point very early on where she's about to like drown in a river or whatever, and like the bird that she's with is like trying to save her and help her out. And in my mind, I'm like, why doesn't she just go and ride the bird, you know, just ride on her back and fly away? And then I was like, okay, well, maybe the bird's incapable of doing that. Maybe she's just too heavy for the bird to lift. I could buy that. But then at the end of the movie, she's seen riding the bird just how you would think she would be able to. So it's like, why didn't you just do that in the beginning to help Thumbelina and bring her to wherever she needs to go? Why didn't you just ride on the back of the bird the whole time instead of going through this whole rigmarole of trying to find your prince? Of course, if they did that, then there wouldn't be much of a movie, but that was like my immediate thought when I saw her befriend this giant talking bird. I forget his name, but honestly, that didn't bother me too much. I think the songs are great. Probably my favorite song is the one with the Spanish band and the Spanish beat. I like that. I think it was really fun. And like, oh, you're gonna be a star, Thumbelina, and all this, all that. At the end, they just kind of abandon her and don't do anything. I wish I had more to say about this, but honestly, it's just a very well executed princess movie. And if that's your jam and you're tired of all the Disney stuff, then definitely give this one a shot. I'm gonna give Thumbelina a high B tier. Very cool. A troll in Central Park. A troll indeed. This movie was straight cheeks, bruh. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna waste your time. Not worth your time, lads. I don't even want to make the argument that, oh, this movie's for kids. If you were a kid, you probably would have liked it more. I'm 100% certain if I saw this as a kid, I would not have enjoyed it. It would not have entertained me. This movie is just a nothing burger. You know, I've got these two lads, they're cute and all, and I think like the boy feels like his parents aren't giving enough attention or whatever. Okay, fine, no, that's a plot point. That's something we can work with. But they don't do anything with that. Instead, they just go to the park, they go under a bridge, oh, a troll's there, and they just party about for a little while, and it's like, okay, and then nothing happens. I will say, I think the animation is beautiful, especially when the troll with his green thumb power makes all the flowers boom around. I think those effects look very beautiful, very well animated. That must have taken a long time. It must have been hard work. Looks like a lot of work. I'm not saying that has no merit, but the story here is ass. I mean, I love the Teflon Don, but this one he just phoned it in. He's just for the paycheck here, and I can fuck with that. I wish I was getting paid for what I was doing, but I'm not. A troll in Central Park. I hate to do it. I hate to do it, lads. I hate to do it, but I gotta give it. I gotta give it the E tier, an E tier.
She told me put my heart in the bag, ain't nobody.
The Pebble and the Penguin. Very cute concept. Love to see it. It almost has like a buddy cop type of vibe. You know, Rocco, you know, he's like, oh, get a load of this guy. I don't like this guy at all. And then Hubie's just trying to be buddies with him, and he just wants to make it back home to where he can give a pebble that he found to his loved one. Very cute concept. And Rocco over here, he just dreams of flying. He wants to fly one day. I feel like I've heard that gag before, like a flightless bird wanting so bad to fly. Nothing groundbreaking here. That's kind of like the theme of the whole movie. Nothing really groundbreaking with this movie. I found it a little bit odd that there was like all this sheet music in the beginning credits of the film and like the starting credits. I would expect that from a movie like Rock-a-Doodle, where like the main character is like a musician. But at least in this movie, where there are songs in it, it's not like the main character is all about music or whatever. It just felt a little weird that like they wanted to really highlight the musicality of this musical, I guess. By the end of it, Rocco is actually able to fly, and there's no real like explanation with it. It just kind of happens. I feel like that's kind of a theme in a lot of Don Bluth films, like things just kind of happen, and we're just like, yeah, it happened, yay. And at the end, we're like, it's the big climactic moment, and Rocco has to save Hubie, who's falling down. I assume they were doing like a falling with style type of gag. He kind of fell down and caught Hubie and was able to save him by sliding onto his belly to safety. I thought it was cute, like, oh, okay, yay, Rocco can fly. But at the end credits, you could see him freaking flying in the sky with a bunch of other little penguins.
They fly now!
So apparently they fly now, guys, and there's just no real like explanation for it. It just happens, and that's not very satisfying to see. I almost want to give it a C tier just because it's so average. I think it's definitely worth a watch if it looks interesting to you. Maybe get more out of it than I did, but for me personally, I gotta give it the C tier. Anastasia. It is a musical, and this one I would say feels the most like a straight up musical than all of the other Don Bluth animes. And that's not a bad thing. I think all the songs are great. I think they move the plot along very well. None of them feel pointless. Love all the dancing, all the characters dancing like it is. It really does feel like a musical, especially during that first act. All the townspeople talking and gossiping about Anastasia or whatever. I think that's kind of neat. Nothing stood out to me as bad. I think the animation is great. I think especially the train scene where they're in the train and the train crashes. I think that's beautifully done. Looks amazing, great visuals. This is one I definitely wish I could have seen in a theater. Dimitri, a very standout character. I love how suave he is, very much a Han Solo type guy. I love to see it, love it. Rasputin is an amazing villain, very unapologetically evil villain. I love his voice acting. He is voiced by the same guy who does Hacker from Cyber Chase, and it sounds exactly like him. I love it.
You think you can banish the great Rasputin? You miserable melonhead!
But every time he talked, I just kept picturing Hacker from Cyber Chase, and it's just so funny to me. And that's not the movie's fault, that's just my brain rot again. There was one scene where like Dimitri was trying to convince Maria to see Anya, and so he could like see that, oh, Anya is in fact, you know, the princess or whatever. Because Maria's like, oh, there's no way this Anastasia is the real Anastasia. I've seen so many fakes. I don't want to even entertain the thought anymore. But Dimitri's like, no, this is her, this is her. And the whole time I'm like, yo, just show her the broken music box thing. Like, show her the thing, show her the thing.
Men are such babies.
Because at the beginning of the movie, he even says this, like, oh, if I just show her this broken music box piece, well then of course she's gonna know it, and this is gonna convince her 100%. So Dimitri knows the whole time he has this silver bullet on him, and he just refuses to use it when it could have benefited him. Again, moments like that don't really bother me too much because it is in the service of the plot. We do get some more drama out of it, and I like to see it. I didn't really mind that, it didn't bother me too much, but it is a moment that stood out to me, and that really kind of took me out. Gotta give Anastasia an A tier. Bartok The Magnificent. I guess this is a hot take, lads, but after watching Anastasia, I wasn't exactly begging for more of that albino flying bat thing. But I guess there must have been some demand for this because they decided to make an entire spin-off movie. I wasn't originally going to include this in the Don Bluth tier list because it is a direct-to-video movie. This wasn't theatrically released, but it fit the criteria of all the other films. It is a certified classic directed by the Teflon Don himself, and is a feature-length film, just barely over an hour. Also, I've been pleasantly surprised by Disney's direct-to-video movies. You know, ones like Lion King 1.5, Cinderella 3 are bangers in their own right.
Can't see a damn thing if they walk.
So I figured, you know, maybe this one will surprise me, and it didn't really. It is pretty boring, nothing really special. There's a lot of moments here that have a very out of place, not very well blended in 3D animation. If you watch this, you'll know what I'm talking about. Like just little things like the sail on the ship, or like the little corkscrew thing. Like there's a lot of moments where it's like, wow, that really looks like CG, and it looks kind of bad.
Now, why have you come here?
I'm not gonna bully it too much, lads, because it is the turn of the millennium. You know, 3D animation definitely still in its infancy. Like, I feel like you can really just skip this one. This also just feels like a nothing burger. I like the, I guess, twist that it turned out that the evil witch or whatever was not behind the kidnapping of the Tsar, of the prince, or whatever he was. The evil witch turned out not to be evil. It was the prince's advisor the whole time, which it's not really a twist. You know, you can see that from a mile away. Just look at her design. Look how pointy she is. You know she's gonna be evil. And then the whole time we have like the albino rat making this potion with the evil witch, only for him never to actually drink it. I was actually hyped to see what would happen when he did drink it, but he never does. The evil advisor drinks it and she just turns into a generic dragon. She was cooler before she drank the mystical potion, which is never something you want to say. I gotta give it a straight C. I gotta give it a low C. Like, I wouldn't even say if you're like a big fan of Anastasia, you should watch this because it doesn't really connect much with Anastasia. So not really worth your time watching. Titan AE. Just like all the other Don Bluth animes, I knew nothing about it going into it, but I did see the cover art beforehand and I knew this one was gonna speak to me. Finally, it's not a story about, you know, little mice and animals. It's not about people in mystical fairylands. This is just straight up sci-fi epic. I highly recommend you give it a watch if you love space, sci-fi, Star Wars type movies. I think Don Bluth does a great job giving his spin on the genre. In this universe, Earth is decimated by a hostile alien race known as the Dredge, and anime Matt Damon is tasked with locating a spaceship known as the Titan that was left by his father, and this ship is supposed to be the last hope for preserving humanity. Very heavy stuff. I love the plot, very engaging story. I think something that stands out to me with this anime is all of the planets, all of the different scenery. You know, there's one planet that has these things called hydrogen trees that are trees with all these giant bubbles on it. Looks absolutely gorgeous. There's another part near the end where they fly through all these crystals, and it just looks so beautiful. All these different spots that they go through throughout this sci-fi epic. There's also a lot of blending of 3D environments with 2D animation that works pretty well. Dynamic camera movements that really help sell the blending of 2D and 3D animation. This really must have been difficult to do, but it looks amazing, lads. This movie feels incredibly early 2000s, early to mid 2000s. I love that vibe and aesthetic. This anime uses a lot of contemporary music throughout the soundtrack. They're assembling a ship to go get the other ship, and they're playing freaking Lit, I'm in Over My Head. I love that. I love to see it. I love movies that take advantage of licensed music like that. Some people might see that as a negative, kind of like how a lot of people hate on the Andor Season 2 trailer for using contemporary music. People say, oh, that doesn't fit in with Star Wars and it takes me out of the experience. I can understand that with something that's, you know, pre-existing, has a pre-existing franchise like Star Wars. But with Titan AE, who's to say what fits and what doesn't? And I think Titan AE does a great job of incorporating contemporary music. Also, a particularly graphic scene where an alien gets blasted and melted in front of us. And it reminded me a lot of the spider getting squished in The Secret of NIMH. Very, very graphic. It seems like a lot of the Don Bluth animes have a hard time wrapping things up for me. I don't know why. But there's this one part where like the Dredge are going to attack the Titan ship that they just got to. And Captain Corso says something along the lines of, oh, Dredge are made of pure energy or whatever. And then anime Matt Damon is just like, oh, if they're just pure energy, then I'll just change the ship to work purely off of Dredge energy. And it's like, okay, you know, that standard setting that every ship has apparently. You know, if every ship is capable of running off Dredge energy and just being immune to all of the Dredge's attacks, then the Dredge would be like just underpowered as heck. You're telling me Space Matt Damon is the first person in this universe to come up with that idea? To make ships run off of Dredge energy? It felt like kind of a cheap way out that they kind of wrote themselves into a corner. Also, near the end, when like Earth is restored, or at least like there's a new Earth now, they do like a really big camera pull out and you can kind of see the CGI terrain of the new Earth. Let me tell you, man, it looks really rough. I'm not gonna bully it too much, lads, because again, I know this is the turn of the millennium. I know that CGI animation is still in its infancy at this point. I think at that point, you might as well just use traditional 2D animation. It's only on screen for a little bit, so I get why they didn't really feel like they had to be too detailed with that. But that kind of camera movement that kind of pulls out in 3D, that's kind of a tall order to do in 2D or 3D. I don't envy the guy's job it was to kind of make that scene happen. And it's right at the end of the movie, so you have to really stick the landing, and I think this movie doesn't really stick the landing as much as I'd had hoped. I gotta give Titan AE the highest A tier I can possibly give, lads. Definitely my favorite cut from the Teflon Don himself. The environments and the scenes, they all look amazing. Really wish I could have seen this in a theater. Definitely check out Titan AE if you haven't. But be sure to let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Is my tier list completely wrong, lads? Is a Troll in King Park actually an S tier for you guys? I have no idea what the general consensus is of these animes, but I'm so glad I got to watch all of these. They're super fun to watch. Thank you guys so much for checking out the content.